All right, I'm going to call to order the Milton Trails Advisory Committee for Thursday, November 13th, 2025. I'm going to take roll call. Brian,
Here.
Phil, not present. Keisha,
Present.
John,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
I'm here, and Neil is not present. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at our meeting agenda. I know there's a lot going on that you guys want to present. So can I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Make a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And then also, can I have an approval for the past meeting minutes for, I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at it, but can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment for today?
We do.
Okay.
Mr. Jim Garrett is here to talk about general trail options.
Great. Thank you for coming, Jim.
Away from all the others. First, I apologize for my voice. I drank from the same water fountain as our Jr., so we both have the same voice issue. But reason I wanted to come, I live, by the way, up close to Birmingham Park. If you're looking at the church, I live just to the right of the church. Between 7 acres and the church. And the McMurrays actually live in the next house closest to 7 acres. So we're the only 2 houses right there that actually face the street right across from Madison Hall, I think is the name of that subdivision. So anyway, the McMurrays informed us just like a week ago that there was this discussion about connecting trails and things to consider. And so I listened to the video last week, which was super helpful because that helped me to understand sort of what was going on. And we thought it would be worthwhile to at least give you guys some food for thought relative to the discussion last week was if they do connect those trails to the new green park down the street, there was a discussion I heard whether it would be on the south side or the north side or whether it would go down possibly Birmingham to the Matildas or whatever. So just a couple of things. At least for us, we have 250-year-old oak trees on our property that would be disturbed if it happened to be on the north side. On the south side of the road right there, it probably makes more sense because there's no homes facing the street. So it wouldn't necessarily impact anybody's property. And then I guess you would have a crosswalk down closer to the fire station where New Bullpen Road would be. So as far as whether you also might consider going down in front of the gas station, there's already a sidewalk there that connects to the crosswalk at the roundabout. And there's a power line easement there. And I don't know if you can tap into that or go adjacent to that, but that runs through the south side of the Birmingham Park property. And so that would probably be a safer alternative. One of the things I wanted to point out for consideration, there are probably 6 times a day where a fire truck comes out of the fire station and goes east. never goes west because we're right on the edge of Fulton County. And the minute that happens, the cars on Hickory Flat bail into the shoulder and without looking. So plus traffic there has gotten worse. They did lower the speed limit to 40. I was trying to get it to 35 or below. But if you did do a path on either side, you would probably want to look at that pretty hard because I think traffic, because people go 10 miles an hour over in the first place. And there's a lot of 18-wheeler and 10-wheeler traffic, a lot of big dump trucks and a few 18-wheelers. Just to give you an idea of the truck traffic, between 9:30 in the morning and 11:30, there's over 100 Amazon trucks that pass my house.
Oh my God.
So that's like one per minute for 2 hours.
Oh my.
It's literally just like a train of Amazon trucks. So, so as you consider the whole process, keep that in mind because I think from a safety standpoint, if you're allowed to put a trail on the power lines where you could go behind McMurray's property and my property onto the power lines, that would probably be the safest just because you could avoid all the fire truck traffic and school buses and whatnot. So I guess that's really the main comments, unless any of y'all have any questions.
Oh, and I had received some calls from people who lived farther down the road, and they had voiced similar sentiment. And they pointed out to me that the original design and plan for Birmingham Park was to have it enter from that gas station side, that public side. So, and I think on one of the plans that we have laid out from staff is that little section up to new bullpen and stuff like that, which.
Correct. And Brian, I'm glad you remember it the same way I do. I unfortunately don't have a graphic showing that, and I can bring that to our next meeting. But from what I remember, there was some kind of diagonal kind of path heading from near the intersection at 372 and Hickory Flat, kind of running northwest, not parallel to the road up towards Birmingham Park was.
Through Matilda's.
Yes.
Yeah, because Matilda's is back there behind 7 Acres. So anyway, those were just points I thought maybe you should be aware of or think about. It wouldn't be obvious to most people, the whole fire truck issue and people bailing for the right of ways because we have to repair grass about 10 times a month from that. So
I think it's very useful for you to come out and let us know because we wouldn't know as much as you do from living there to know where the traffic flows go and where the different issues might lie. So thank you so much.
well, it's weird. We've lived there. We built a house there, so we've been there 10 years, and traffic has obviously just exploded since they used to go. Could just sit out in the road and eat lunch practically. There was no traffic at all. But the biggest change I've seen is the big truck traffic. And I know the City of Milton Police Department will occasionally stop the big 18-wheelers because they're not supposed to go on that thoroughfare. But there's a lot of dump truck traffic. And as you guys know, if you turn there at the fire station, I guess there's some kind of dump or recycling center the city has back in there. So it's a lot of truck traffic from that. So my opinion would be, obviously I have a vested interest in it not being on my side of the road. I think if it had to be on Hickory Flat, it would probably make more sense and be less costly on the south side of the road because there's no big trees and there's no power lines or electrical, and there's an AT&T electrical box on our side of the road that would be considered.
That's the good thing about our city employees. They really take into account what's going to cause the least amount of harm in creating these trails and that sort of thing.
So
And
just two more quick questions and then I'll let you guys go on. One question is this path, because I don't know anything about it, so is it going to be used for horses or for pedestrians or both?
So that hasn't been determined for any of the trails that we're looking at anywhere in the city. We would, if it's ultimately moved forward and funded and council gives us the direction to start working on it, that's one of the first decision points we have is material type. Are we envisioning it being used by horses? Are we envisioning it used by bicycles or golf carts? And whether those are yeses or nos would dictate what the surface looks like, whether it would be gravel or whether it would be asphalt or
Okay.
concrete.
Yeah, because at least for now, Birmingham Park's mostly equestrian. There's people pathways back there too, but it's typically impediment is, horse manure that you walk over. Second is it connecting or is the intention to connect to the schools in the area through this pathway project?
So citywide, and there will be a map that I can show you in a future slide. The requirement for a private development to build a sidewalk that's required along their frontage of, let's say they have property on 372 or on Hickory Flat or on Birmingham Road. If they're within a half a mile of a school or an active park, they're required to build it. All the trail map does is change that sidewalk that the development we're required to build and make it wider and turn it from a 5-foot sidewalk into an 8 to 10-foot trail. The trail network in itself, yes, we've drawn intentionally lines to try and connect schools and parks, but I haven't gone through and ultimately looked at whether we've checked 100% of those boxes. It's a factor, but it's not the only factor, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I was just curious from a safety standpoint if that was.
We've had a lot of conversations in the committee in the past. One of the key things we're trying to do when building just sidewalks in general, definitely trails, is to try and provide kids safe options so that their parents don't have to drive them to school. So that's a focus of ours, not just for schools, but for parks as well.
Well, that's it. Do you have any other questions for me?
Do you know how your neighbor found out about this trail project?
That's a great question. They've lived in Milton since before it was Milton. So I don't know. I don't know if it was a friend of theirs, but they called me and asked me to look into it because they weren't going to be able to come tonight. And then that's when I went online and found the video, which was super helpful because that, helped me to understand it.
Because obviously we want the community to know about it. So that just like you, if they have questions, and I was just curious, how is the word getting out? And it'd be good to know how they found out.
Well, I don't think the word is getting out because my wife didn't know about it. And I know Chris Mills, who owns 7 Acre, didn't know about it or owns the building. So but I guess it's a hard thing to get out there. But,
And I was going to repeat exactly what Jim just said. Traditionally for us in government, getting people interested and involved and participating and hearing about projects that could still be 5, 10 plus years out is extremely difficult. It's tough enough even getting them to come to a meeting when we have something in design. Usually it's when we're getting ready to try and purchase their land or we have under construction, they're just then getting engaged. Related to how they may have figured out, we have been doing a little bit of social media periodically on and off about Trails Committee, things that are going on. I think Greg put out a post about the blueprint update that's going through council, so that that may have triggered something.
Yeah.
It could have been a couple of other different things.
Okay.
So anyway, I found out from them. So I've only known for a week.
One more thing, Mr. Garrett. 2 150-year-old oak trees are an extremely good reason why we would look at the other side of the road. I have no desire at all to hurt those trees to build a sidewalk.
Well, thanks.
Right.
Yeah, they're kind of special. So anyway, any other questions for me?
Yeah, and feel free if your neighbors have any additional questions, you know, they can always reach us either coming to the meeting or even reach out to any of us on the
Yeah,
Trails Committee.
I'm sure they will. I think his biggest concern was his house is even closer to the road than mine. So if they carved out 8 foot for a sidewalk and a buffer or whatever it would be, you'd literally be probably 6 feet from his front porch. And he's that close. And I think his house is 150 years old. So,
Mm.
in fact, I think they're trying to put it on the historical record.
Oh, good. The register.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
thank
You're a
you.
great neighbor to come out and represent.
Thanks for all y'all, your hard work. Love living in Milton.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Unfinished business.
Yep.
So good afternoon, everyone. I was talking to Brian earlier. It's been a little bit of a weird, strange week for Kathy and I with having Veterans Day holiday on Tuesday. And Kathy and I both came from Athens earlier today. We have our big annual transportation conference, bunch of engineers, bunch of everyone and kind of in that industry. We always head up to Athens once a year and just have a big powwow, bunch of presentations from the commissioner of the state DOT. And it's a good time, but it's a little bit of a drive. And just this year happened to be on the same night as the Trails Committee meeting. So I was a little late in prep and Kathy just joined us, but we've got a lot to go through tonight. Happy to be here. I'll go through the city staff updates here quickly. Blueprint code revisions. We're so close to getting that through. I'm happy that we have the unfinished business item on Monday night's agenda. So the code revision process for us, I think I've given you this update before. It requires 2 reads, so two public opportunities to see what the code changes are. And the first one of that was this first November's meeting. And the second reading of that is going to be the 2nd November meeting. So it'll be an unfinished business item. This will be an actual presentation from me. I'll be giving them a very similar presentation to, I believe, Brian and Neil saw at the work session in June. Extremely similar. I copied a lot of my slides. The only change that we're recommending, if you remember, the same list of additions, those 3 segments that were going through Fulton County Schools property are being removed. So I'll highlight that as a difference from what they've seen in June. I haven't heard any issues. I'm hoping for a quick approval. And I had mentioned this before. If any of you are able to come Monday night, that would be a great opportunity to say hello to them, just remind them that this is ultimately, and this will be part of my presentation, this is coming straight from the Trails Committee. This is something we've put a lot of hard work in and are happy to try and push across this finish line. Go ahead.
So this is the second read. So the first one already happened.
First one already happened.
Brian.
And that was more of a formality. That wasn't even a presentation. It was literally the city clerk and the mayor announcing the item, and they approved the first read and moved directly on to the next item. So there wasn't any discussion or anything.
Okay.
So council, 6 o'clock on Monday night.
Okay.
One of the questions that I'm likely going to get from them every time I talk about sidewalks is prioritization and where we're heading on this. So I'm happy to be able to talk to them about where the effort that we're working on right now. And yes, we're changing the map, but we're also working on bringing them a recommendation for how to spend the existing money to start building some of that network. So I won't get into details on that with them yet, but I'll let them know I'm hopeful it should be ready for early next year to start giving them some of those recommendations.
Great.
Real quickly, item B, staff updates. If any of you, just by chance, I didn't give you any warning on this, are interested in coming by the Whitetail Bike Shop down the street tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We're doing a little bit of a pop-up event geared towards the users of the bike shop. We're looking at some upgrades and some safety improvements along Freemanville and along Hopewell, the major north-south corridors in the city, as part of our Safe Streets for All, our safety action plan work. We've worked with the bike shop. They tell us that if we kind of set up a booth there with some displays, there will be enough users of the bike shop and the coffee place on a Friday morning that will have no problem getting activity and people coming. But if any of you are free and would like to come by too, you're more than welcome.
So the booth that you're setting up is it going to be like talking about the prioritization, the blueprint?
Absolutely not. No,
I was
this
gonna
is
say-
this is strictly listening to our residents that are having issues as bicycle riders on Freemanville and on Hopewell.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing to do,
I-
nothing to do with MTAC or our agenda. I just thought with you being the Trails Committee, it might be something that one of you are interested in coming. And then lastly, Greenprint Steering Group meeting. We've had meeting on that a couple of months ago. I believe Brian and Neil came. It was productive. I talked about this again last month. There's nothing new on that front. I know that I have not been involved as much as Sarah is. I'm expecting some additional meetings and additional conversation after we get through holidays. Typically, it's difficult to get people, especially as public outreach, anytime in November and December, but we're expecting that. I know Sarah wants to try and wrap up the Greenprint discussion of where the past meeting was focusing on where those conservation areas are. Once we kind of lock those in, then we're going to be able to shift the focus on, okay, with what the area is left, how do we want to start programming those? Where would we envision the entrance being, the driveway? Do we envision building a small gravel parking lot? How big is it? Where is it going to go? Are we looking at the traditional passive park amenities like trails, fishing, wildlife viewing opportunities, anything like that? Is all the future meetings are going to be diving into a lot of those details. So if you're interested, keep an eye out for that.
Thank you.
The second big unfinished business item tonight is continuing the discussion from last meeting on our prioritization. So these are the slides that I had provided in advance, and I am not going to go through the exact presentation that I did last time. I think all of you are familiar with a lot of the material that I've got in the next 20 slides. So I'm going to skip pretty quickly forward to where we landed. Kathy and I worked hard on trying to come up with staff recommendation. Ultimately, what we tried to do is merge some of the things that Neil was focusing on as far as loops and connect and finishing some gaps and bringing those loops online, along with the idea that Brian was proposing is trying to, yes, loops are important, but also connecting to parks and schools and trying to build those segments as logical extensions of the facilities that we already have in place. This map you hadn't seen before, so now you've got a version of this in your slides that you can print out. Kathy provided this based on a question, I believe it was from Neil. Where are those large subdivisions? So we coded in blue for you every subdivision in the city with more than 80 homes, along with schools and active parks and passive parks. So you can kind of see the lay of the land and what that looks like. Next slide is kind of our map of, this starts to get a little complicated, I know, but our map of segments on top of that previous map with all the subdivisions and schools and parks. And then in the next slides, I don't want to go through these in great detail. I'll hit any of them if you want, but the next slides cover what we covered last time, the connections A1 through K1, and details about each of those segments, what our assumptions are on length and cost, along with some of the challenges that each of them have, as well as some discussion on potential material types. Once we get through all of those, we landed on a table like this where we showed you what, again, graphically in a matrix style from A1 over to K1, which segments have more than one material option, kind of summarize whether it's within less than a mile of a school or a park, along with some important issues on the engineering side that we try and factor in that tells us how easy and how difficult the segment will be to either pay for or to permit and bring online. Things like utility impacts, things like property impacts, the number of parcels is a big factor. I often talk with people that don't understand kind of how that right-of-way acquisition works. Imagine I knocked on your door and said, "Hey, I'm in the city. I want to buy some of your property to build a sidewalk." Your first question is going to be, "Who the heck are you? What project are you talking about?" Exactly. Most people don't follow city government and usually don't know about these projects until they're impacted. That's the nature of why our projects are controversial. So every single one of those parcels on that table has a negotiation where we're knocking on someone's door asking. It could be very simple. It could be, I'm looking for permission to tie your driveway back into our new road. And it's a little bit of easement that's going to be on a sketch that we pay you $500 for. And once the project's done, nothing's any different. You've got a brand new driveway and we've never disturbed anything. It could go from there to, we need to purchase half an acre from you in order to have room to build our roundabout. And the complications of stormwater and fences and landscaping and those negotiations get very complicated, very difficult, very quickly. So anything we can do to minimize the number of those negotiations and parcels makes Kathy and I's path forward a lot easier. We also put some information in here on grading, whether we thought pedestrian crossing would likely be included, and then length and cost. The next slide is new. So this is the follow-up to the questions we had from Neil last time. Kathy and I looked at where the discussion was and our knowledge of where people are using these facilities in the area. And we came up with an idea to ultimately build two smaller loops that are adjacent to each other. So this could function, if you can see my cursor on the screen, this could function as a smaller loop here and a smaller loop here, or it could function as one larger loop that basically, because they're adjacent, you could take this way. This perimeter of this smaller loop here is a little over 2 miles. If we're looking at the bigger segment, this is a little bit over 3 miles. This is a connection on the new trails would be in pink. We would be looking at Freemanville and Bethany and Providence, but the areas that you see in yellow, Summit, Cowart, and this section of Providence are already online. So you see we have some of the work there. We'd be filling those gaps as we talked about before. The next slide, this talks about where that segment on Freemanville would look. For the shorter loop on the left, total loop length, once it be completed, is a little over 2 miles. We would be proposing to build that segment R, connecting Freemanville from the roundabout at Providence up to Summit. Which side of the road it's on has not been determined. I have an idea on what would be the easier of the two, but we haven't necessarily locked that in yet. We're leaning towards the east side. We would look at both if we moved forward, but we're currently thinking the east side is likely going to be the easier of the two, tying into the gravel road at Summit Road and then tying to the existing sidewalk at the roundabout at Providence. Approximate cost, that would be total cost of ballpark $800,000 to $1 million. That's 2,700 feet, half-mile connection. That would be $1 million of our 3 to 4 that we've talked about in the past.
And on the east side, that makes a lot of sense because there's already that sidewalk section a little farther north of that could eventually go down Red and then make even a bigger loop.
And especially if we're doing this to finish this loop, I mean, keeping it on that side of Freemanville removes 2 crossings of Freemanville, if that's what they're doing is that loop. This graphic shows the larger loop. So what would that look like if we're able to build R, then we would be looking at building S&T. So S is actually a segment I've talked about Neil with before, extending that segment on Providence down to the proposed roundabout at Bethany. And then a short 1,150-foot segment on Bethany labeled T to get us to, I believe that's Brittle right here. Once we get to Brittle, Brittle's a gravel road. Brittle, they'd be walking on Brittle. And by building R, S, and T, that would give us a 3-mile loop to go with the 2-mile loop right next to it. We did want to talk about this one as well. This is a long conversation, a lot of discussion last month regarding D1, the trail on 372. I want to talk about that a little bit more tonight. Kathy and I spent a lot of time looking at it, talking with Sarah. If ultimately the focus from this group and this effort is to try and bring projects online as quickly as we can, D1 is going to be difficult. D1 is absolutely possible. D1 is not going to be anywhere near as quick as R and S and T would. Going back, D1 from staff's perspective, it would be an amazing benefit. I would think it would get used relatively heavily, but due to its length, due to its almost a mile and a half, due to the state route coordination, it's just not something that's going to happen quickly. If it's a priority from this group, if it's a priority from the city and we want to have it happen, the best path forward from staff perspective is to keep it in mind for T-SPLOST project lists. This would be a great just standalone capital project that we could identify. Trail on 372 from Providence to Wood Road. That would be a great, I would think, project on our T-SPLOST list to get residents excited about that they could support and advance as a separate capital project. Ultimately, if T-SPLOST is renewed. That T-SPLOST project list discussion I've mentioned a couple of times. It happens every 5 years. T-SPLOST is a 5-year tax. So typically we would be starting those conversations in the spring and summer of next year. If the county and if the elected officials decide they want to renew T-SPLOST and they want to have them back to back so there's no interruptions in the collection so that the next one's starting at the same time the previous one ends, that would typically be on our ballot for referendum next November, so a year from now.
So given the fact that this total loop is almost 5 miles long, how much buy-in do you need? Like how many parcels, or it seems like there's a lot of area. So that area would,
So
yeah,
D1
19.
on that trail, we've got 19 parcels.
And so do we need to, before we try to, do we need to get buy-in prior to looking to get the money? Do we need to like kind of advertise or something? And I guess my concern is if the T-SPLOST is dedicated towards this and then we meet a lot of resistance that from people not wanting to do it, what happens?
So typically in a normal scenario, we'd be talking about potential T-SPLOST projects for a good 3 to 6 months before any kind of vote is taken. And during that discussion, we'll start with a project list that is, let's say, double our budget and narrow it down and try and prioritize. And ultimately, it's council's decision. If one of the potential projects on that list does have not a lot of support, especially from the residents that are most affected by it, that would be something they consider when they're trying to pare down that list.
Okay. So we have options if we were to say, yes, let's put it on the list that we want to get money, but.
I'm going to say March, April, May, June of next year, there's likely going to be a discussion of those potential projects to try and narrow down that list, and public input and public outreach is typically something that they spend a lot of time trying to getting. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So where Kathy and I took this, trying to propose D1 as more of a T-Splosh capital project. We are left with the lists that you see on the right of the screen. The list on the left is where we were last month. That did hit our budget pretty closely, didn't give us a lot of wiggle room. We still had that unknown of whether we had any requests from the cross-country teams in the schools that we hadn't heard much a reaction to. From Kathy and I's perspective, I would, they're both very good lists. If the focus is to try and get something in the ground as quickly as we can to bring it online and provide that benefit to our residents, from Kathy and I's perspective, the list on the right's a better list for that. If other factors are important too. I wish we had a way, and this is one of those unknowns on the engineering side, to be able to say exactly how many people would be using these when we build them. That's difficult. Whether the list on the right would maximize the number of users, I can't necessarily tell you that one way or the other. I can tell you that and hopefully Brian and the rest of you would probably have even seen this. From what I know, the portions of these loops are already being used now. So I would think if roads like Brittle, Summit, if those roads are already being used by residents, then why wouldn't finishing some of these gaps and building a 2-mile or a 3-mile facility be something that those existing users are very excited about,
What's the
interested
distance
in?
from the north side of R to the entrance of Wood Road?
Let's find out.
And they're pretty close.
And remember, there's already existing sidewalk on a good chunk of that. So the
On the
question
right
really
side.
comes from
Mhm.
from Summit to that sidewalk, because I don't think that sidewalk goes all the way to Summit.
So
does
from
it?
Summit to Wood is about half a mile, 2,400 feet.
Does that sidewalk go all the way to Summit or?
So we can answer that too. So let's see what the aerial shows. I have to do it this way. So sorry, I was going up to Phillips. So we have,
Phillips is the same.
yeah. So the sidewalk currently ends at Red on the east side. I'm looking south now. So the sidewalk kind of follows around the corner and then heads down Red Road. So there's a little gap there to get that last Red up to Phillips segment. Moving south, sidewalk goes all the way to
Our work is done. Look. Look at all the, there's so much existing.
the new fence. It's Brian's favorite project.
Yeah.
I'm happy that looked so good.
That's why I asked. I knew there was a lot of.
Still has sidewalk all the way down. I'm thinking it's going to get all the way down to Summit. Yeah, there it is.
So then the only section, if you really want to have that loop on that side of the road, is looking at that section on Red Road, kind of filling in a couple of those sidewalk segments. Is that in this?
Get them from, yes. So
Them over to, was that Cowart or that?
Summit.
Yeah, so talk me back through. I don't frequently bill every day. Like, so
Mhm.
what is the amount of sidewalk we'd have to fill in order to have the loop you're proposing? And if you wanted to go north up Freemanville and hit Phillips?
Okay, so the big gap right now, and that's the R segment on the map, is from the roundabout of Providence to Summit. It starts at Summit. We can connect to existing, it's not trail width,
Yeah.
but it's existing sidewalk width from Summit all the way to the Red, and then makes the right turn on Red. In order to get up to Phillips, we would have a very small gap there to try and cross ultimately users of the facility on the east side of Freemanville over to Phillips so they can use Phillips.
You'd have that little section on the right side, the sidewalk you'd have to do between Phillips and Red. right
Yes.
there. Yep.
But with your redesign of that intersection, I think, don't you already have something in the works for that?
I wish I remembered that. I'm almost positive we're gonna have a crosswalk at that intersection. We've been talking about that intersection a lot recently. I'm not ready to give you some recommendations yet on how that's going to change, but there are going to be some modifications to previous concepts you'd seen at that intersection. We're still doing the crossing down at the Southern Phillips. That isn't changing. But as part of that, it may be something that we're already doing in the project, Brian. I'm not 100% sure.
And then the filling in the blank on the sidewalks on Red to get to the gravel road there. Is that in the our little wish list for this year? Or?
Say that one more time.
So as we go down Red Road, heading east to get to Brittle, basically it's a matter of kind of filling in some of the sidewalks there.
Mm-hmm.
And is that on our list? Because boy, that really makes that little
That's a loop.
loop a big
Mhm.
loop.
If you'd like to add those gaps to our staff recommendation for project list on the right, that would make a lot of sense to me. We're looking at Red right now. We have a consultant under contract looking at some intersection improvements along with some sidewalk gaps. So it would be, I don't know exactly where those gaps are, how long they are, but if we're doing work in that area, why not do 2 adjacent loops? Why do 3 adjacent loops right next to it?
Yeah,
And
'cause
you're
that gives you
blowing the
I don't
3
know,
up
total,
to
that's probably
4.5 or 5, maybe.
yeah, exactly.
Can we look at K1 again? Because if I'm looking at the recommendations, if we could maybe fill in some Red Road, like Brian suggested, I feel like another pretty easy project was H2 because there was least resistance because the city already owned the property. So I don't know, I was just looking at the recommendations and maybe substituting those two. So this is 2.
H2 is one of the lesser expensive ones. If that's something that you're all interested in, we
Mhm.
could hypothetically add that to our list on the right.
You can add Red and that, which I think is a good idea. We're gonna have to find one to drop, right?
Right, that's what I was thinking. If we did maybe Red and then H2, does it make sense? We need R, S, and T for the loop. But we, for the loop, don't need E or K1, I don't think. So
Which one's E?
He's along Providence. And does that connect to the asphalt existing side path?
That brings the asphalt, basically that next block from the roundabout at 372 to the roundabout at Providence.
okay.
Sorry,
Which
Just
would,
listen.
roundabout at Freemanville.
which I think the ultimate thing would be to connect to that beautiful section that's already out there.
Sure.
That would be
It would be, if hypothetically, it would be connecting, once we build R, it would be connecting those loops back to the asphalt trail on New Providence.
Pretty, big, old oak trees in front of. Oh,
Yes, where the Fulton County water line work is going on. Yes, building that segment, I anticipate needing to cross at least once
Right.
because there's no logical, obvious side of the road for that to occur. I've got oak trees on one side. I've got at least one cemetery on the other side. That's not that's a challenge, but something we can work through.
K1 was beneficial because it helped Cambridge, Kingsridge, North Park.
We liked K1 because of the access to the schools there, as well as the next kind of extension for the Big Creek Greenway, the trail that we're building on Cogburn that's going to start construction next year.
maybe we take E off this year and put it on next year.
Oh, I do remember K1 because it did impact this.
You also don't need to make a decision tonight. This is, we've given you a lot of material over the past couple of months. If this is something you want to think about, talk with your neighbors and friends, reach out to people that you know in this area and see what they think. We can easily table this for the holidays and come back with a fresh start in January. And
4 million target?
4 million is the target. I think the number is somewhere in that 3.5 to 4 range, but we've been intentionally a little bit conservative. We're engineers as far as these costs and try and show you on the high side of these numbers so that we're confident we can deliver if you choose them. The other factor in some of these costs, if we ultimately move forward with gravel and do what Neil has talked about, where we start with gravel and then graduate up to asphalt if we see a lot of use in it. Obviously, the gravel would be a lot cheaper initially than doing any kind of asphalt out the gate.
I would say take E off and let's do that red section along there.
Yeah, I used to
That
live
big
right by
loop.
E, and like I was really supporting it right when we started this conversation, but like every time I drive down that road, including today, like I just think logistically, it's gonna be a really tough
It's going to be very difficult.
place to put it. It makes a ton of sense, but I in terms of trying to be quick and impactful, I agree with you.
Right.
So does that affect any of the, by taking E off, does that affect any of the loops that you had planned on the left-hand side? It's,
All
oh,
it would
okay.
do, the value of E would be connecting the loops back to the existing asphalt trail on New Providence. So this is unaffected. This is unaffected.
Okay.
Both of these graphics are unaffected by dropping E. I was trying to remember our conversation. So we had talked about adding red road gaps on the south side, and we talked about one other project. I can't remember what the ad was.
I was talking about what we needed additionally to fill the gap between N and
Providence.
R and getting to Phillips. I think we were seeing.
That's what it was.
Small
Yep.
gap.
And
And honestly, like it looked like the south side of Phillips might even hit it before the sidewalk runs out. I don't know.
I'll have better information in our next meeting on whether we're checking that box as part of our intersection project or not. That
Cross over and hit a gravel road and get to the trail, you're fine.
in a best case scenario, that segment's already spoken for a capital project that we'll take care of. What do we think? Is this something we want to kind of lock in and take a vote on, or is this something we want to think about and come back in January?
I-
So only gonna get more expensive.
You joke, Brian, but they're not getting any cheaper anytime soon. That's why we want to,
This vote.
once we get this, support from you, this is something that I'll be working with Sarah and Steve, our city manager, on, seeing when we can get it in front of council and get their buy-in, their support before we, ultimately move forward with procurement. The budget's sitting there waiting for us to decide how we want to spend it.
I think going with the stuff on the recommendations on the right, it fulfills, I keep going back to our goal. It's around a school, it helps connect the loop. And then the fact that it also is ready, you said it'd be more ready, easily to do and ready to go compared to the connections on the left.
Mhm.
I feel like it's checking off the boxes that we set before we started this project.
It's cohesive, it's all in the same area. And then I think that by connecting R and getting it to Phillips or Wood, you're setting yourself up for the future to bring that trail back down Birmingham and come back across. And like, that's the ultimate loop, I think, could be the next thing we focus on.
There are some really good ideas and segments on that blueprint map and on that project list on the left. Just again, with our focus on trying to bring something online as quick as we can with this existing money. That's why we're kind of leaning more towards the list on the right. I absolutely want to make sure we don't forget about the trail on 372 and a couple of other those blueprint map segments that received a lot of support when we did our public outreach, when we do T-SPOS discussions.
GDOT roads, does that make it harder?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's in Birmingham.
State Route
GDOT,
372.
We're staying away from that here too, right?
Um,
Do we have any?
So we had talked about last month, we had talked about, trying to remember which letter it is, D. that segment on 372 from the Providence roundabout all the way up to Wood. Great idea, I would predict very heavily used, but schedule wise, cost wise, very difficult for us to bring online quickly. Anything involving the state DOT, it just takes longer.
And
We have a lot also less typically material options whenever we're building something in state right of way. Theoretically, we wouldn't have to build it in state right of way if we had some amenable property owners where we could build it maybe on a permanent easement on their property, not on state right of way. That's something we would look at if we're moving forward with the design and concept and see if that's something that we could hypothetically do.
But the section on the right that we've revised into, there is no DOT.
There is no state route coordination on that list on the right at all. That's why Kathy and I like it.
Yeah, and I've run that loop so many times and stuff like that. I mean, it's beautiful. The only other variable that we need to take into account is where we want a trailhead for that loop so that you have people parking.
So I'm going to ask Kathy to help me on that and refresh my memory. We had, come on up, we had talked about using.
Yeah, the one, we had talked to Sarah about using the one, I think at Summit Hill Elementary School. So she said we don't have an agreement with them right now, but that we could reach out to try to get an agreement. And it looks like there's a gate, I think on Cowart. So we couldn't get people coming in that way, but it's not gated from the other, I think on Providence. So it would be a good possibility.
Yeah. Super. I make a recommendation that we accept staff recommendations from November 13th.
I agree too. I think we can build on the momentum of this to hopefully get the buy-in. You know, we say, look, we've accomplished these goals of connecting the loops and connecting trails, and also, you know, prioritizing safety for kids and stuff. And then we can tackle the harder projects that might need a little bit more public buy-in for. So I agree. I'm with the staff recommendations from November 13th.
Just to be clear for the minutes.
Yep.
The revised recommendations that we're showing on the screen on the right.
Correct. They're revised.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Great. I'll update you after I'm able to talk with Sarah and Steve on what that process is going to look like for us. I'm just offhand for me trying to make it up on the spot. I'm expecting probably a work session with council after the blueprint changes are wrapped up and finished and completely done. Probably not in December. December is a tough time for everyone at the holidays, maybe after the first of the year, after we have our new council member on board, potentially early next year, having a work session with them where we talk about each of these segments. We talk about the factors that went into our recommendations and kind of summarizing all the discussion we had here, and to get their feedback on whether this is something they want to move forward into design. If they give us the green light, we would be as quickly as we can hiring a design firm to start giving us the plans for these.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Very cool.
Great work.
Well, yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, yay to progress.
Yay, progress. I completely agree. I do have a couple of other items that I did not include on this last slide. Last month, I briefly mentioned keeping in mind board elections and officers. I don't think it's a good idea to do that tonight, but I wanted just to get that in your head, likely in the January meeting, with that being that fresh start with the turnover in the calendar year and our new council members coming in. It's kind of logical to do that every 2 years when we're coming off of the elections for our mayor and council. So be thinking about that. I mentioned the whitetail event, and only other point was next meeting. So we have the option to meet in December if you'd like. We met last month, end of September, and then we're meeting obviously today. If you'd like to meet in December, we can figure out a date. If you don't want to meet in December, we can plan on reconvening after the first of the year. And what we would do at that point is we can handle, Kathy and I, through email, review our recommendations for where on the calendar we want to schedule meetings starting in January, to clear and review those as a group, looking at how many meetings and when we're kind of staggering them throughout the year, rather than necessarily picking that January date tonight.
So I have a question. Is there any pressing matters that, now that we've approved the blueprint, is there any pressing matters that you think a December meeting would be?
There's nothing,
important?
we've actually gotten a lot done in the past 3 months. There's nothing urgent, I would say. I do owe you an update for how that project is going to be handled and whether we have the capital project already doing that. And I did want to give you an update too on our conversation with the property owner on that, how that Birmingham Park work is going. I don't have that with me offhand, but if my memory is correct, I'm leaning towards what Brian was thinking as far as that path not being necessarily parallel to the road, that there was some kind of other connection, either with power line easement or something else that was going to make that so that we wouldn't be impacting his trees. I was planning on giving you an update on that. That can wait for January if that's how you want to handle it.
Okay.
I don't see, if there's nothing pressing, I think we can take December off if everyone's in agreement.
Yeah, that's
Your presentation to City Council on the 17th, will there be some questions coming out of there or feedback or?
Ultimately, I don't know. I'm crossing my fingers that it's an easy discussion and an approval that night. Ultimately, they could send it back to you for further discussion and questions. That's something that ultimately they could defer and schedule it for a future meeting. That's completely up to them.
Why don't we consensus or just have a date in December in case there's
I
a lot
agree.
of questions and we need to meet.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we'll plan on skipping it unless we hear back from on Monday's meeting.
If I can make a suggestion, how about if Monday night doesn't go as smooth as I think it is, then we'll handle scheduling December, just an
Okay.
email or
Through email.
text chain and
Okay.
find a good date in December
Okay.
if we feel like we need to have a December meeting for
Yeah.
that reason.
I would say, let's positive thoughts. It's all
Yes.
gonna go well.
Likely, I mean, just based on calendars, likely probably second week of December. Third week of December starts getting closer to Christmas, and I know that's typical for everyone, but I think we can probably find a Thursday.
Okay.
If
I'm
we
going
need-
to try to make the Monday meeting. Is anyone else going to try to go?
I'm out of town.
I can come.
Just to see
Good.
the discussion.
Good.
Yeah, I won't be, if we make it the 11th, I won't be able to make this in December if we have to meet. I won't
Okay.
just won't be able to make that. But
We'll figure that out if we need to.
yeah,
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, I'm ready to adjourn if you are.
yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I would just want to acknowledge you guys for all your hard work. I know it was a lot. We asked a lot of you to go back and figure out, how difficult it would be to put these trails into certain places and stuff. So we really do appreciate all your hard work.
I think we have a really good list that we're sharing with council. I do want to caution you, we're subject to their
Right.
ultimately opinions. They may want to get some public input on that list. We may need to, we'll see what they think.
Mhm. But I appreciate y'all's posture of always being accommodating to us with all of our,
Yeah.
No,
requests.
we're here to help. This is an important topic that I'm happy that we have residents like you who are interested in it. It's Kathy and I's jobs. Safety of our pedestrians, safety of our vehicles, and it's something that we've always just ingrained into our brain. But it's good to work with people who have that same mission, I guess.
Well, we appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
And this committee is so important because we went through a period where the city just hired consultants to
Didn't
come
know.
up with trail plans.
Mhm.
And there was a total separation between the citizens and, what they were trying to achieve. So I think, this committee representing the community brings the city back to the community and sets us up for the best outcome. So
Absolutely.
thanks so much.
We have limited resources, and the last thing we want to do is start building something that isn't supported. I mean, it comes down to that.
All right, I guess I'll make, does anybody have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, I think
Okay.
we're done. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good work.